Dan Latham, who is on the hotline this morning. Dan, good morning.
Good morning. I'm on my remote studio, remote office, transmitter, control device, news recorder, sales assistant, sports backup device. Well, I wish we had those back then.
I'm telling you, I hear so many stories about the technology that used to be in the station, and it may have been state-of-the-art back then, Jacob, but if we saw that stuff in here today, we would quickly go from what we believe to be as professionals in this industry to what is that, how does it work, why aren't there any buttons, where's the computer screen?
Yeah, it's amateur hour for sure when we look back, and I think that would be a great way to start, Dan. Just one good morning, but talk about the era of radio that you came from and how you've seen it evolve over the years, whether it's been good or bad.
Well, it's interesting. It used to be that there was 6 pegs with 45 records on it. That was the music rotation. Hits 1 through 10, 120, all the different numbers. And the program director came in every other day and shuffled the records around. I think you are sitting where the transmitters were when I arrived in the Pioneer City in 1974. And, it had green shag carpet.
We do have green carpet, Dan, but it's not shag anymore. It's actually in the newsroom on the opposite end of the newsroom window here in the studios. But yeah, we've actually learned and heard from several people that have called up or stopped up to the radio station that where we sit now used to be basically how everything ran. This is where the transmitters were. And now that those are downstairs, we have a nice, clean, and open upstairs area, Dan.
Well, the interesting thing is my last week that I was at WMOA, Big John had me drive to Quincy, Illinois, and get the new solid-state transmitter and control board from Harris Electronics.
Wow. Yeah. And, just with that technology, I'm assuming Big John would get nothing but the best. Is that right? So your trip would have, I would say your trip back had some precious cargo with the new items that you were getting here at the station.
Oh, sure. But I think more of Big John was being a little frugal. He was able to trade out the van to go get it and save quite a few $100s in shipping costs. So, but yes, it was the top of the line equipment and made a big change in the station operation.
And with Big John on the brain, just kind of talk about those cast of characters. It's been some of my favorite, parts of the conversations, whether it's the guests that we've had recently or just in general. Give us a view of the people that were inside of the station, just keeping things afloat and what you remember from them, maybe some fun stories.
Oh, sure. I came to work in 1974 right out of college. Didn't know anybody in Marietta, but it was such a warm and welcome. Ray Rosenblum was the owner, Larry Steinel on the mornings, Big John was the sales manager. I went through 3 different owners of the radio stations while I was there for the 13 years that I spent in Marietta. And some of the people, John Richardson had long gone at that, or not long gone, but had moved on to other careers. And, we saw him quite often at Big John's Timeout Bar down in underneath where the People's Bank is right now.
Yeah.
Other people that worked there, Marty Reed Klingeman went on to a career in motorsports. Bill Rosinski did sports, and Bill still does sports. I heard him on the NCAA playoffs on radio on Westwood One over this last Final Four season.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Corson was another salesperson. He went on to a career at KQV in Pittsburgh and then to ABC in Dallas, and he just retired a few months ago. Jim Mcintyre went on to a news career. He was one of the news people at 3WE, which is now WTAM in Cleveland. Earl Buck was Jack Buck's nephew. He went on to a couple other careers. I think he had some health issues and is no longer with us. Howard Katz, I got to know for about a week, and he left the radio station. And then, lo and behold, several years later, he was one of the top salespeople at WTVN in Columbus, and just retired from WTVN about 3 years ago, I think. Don Lee Stats, he went by Don Lee on the air. Chuck Levins was also on, and he went on to an engineering career. And a lot of nice folks that I met over the years.
And Dan, just I think we have similarities there. Great info, but I'm originally from Tennessee, so when I did come to Marietta, I knew absolutely nobody in the town, but I had a kind of similar sentiment, as it's just such a warm and welcoming place, and that's not blowing smoke. I just don't want people to take that for granted, because that's certainly not the case in other places. What would you say stuck out to you as being somebody that was new? Was it that warm aspect, or, kind of transitioning into broadcasting? What did you first learn and always sticks out in your brain in Marietta when you were just getting acclimated to not only the business but the town itself?
Well, I was fortunate to be in the sales end, and also helped out with news a little bit. So I got to meet a lot of people right off the bat. And over the time that I was there, got active in various community activities, such as the JCs, the Noon Lions, the Ad Club. Ray, Larry, and Big John all encouraged activity in the community. And so that was one of the biggest things. It was a big help, being able to have a lot of different activities to be involved in.
Yeah, definitely so. And I would say if you had the chance to look back, which we always do, and just the people that you meet here in town. I mean, Marietta is a great place to be, to raise a family, and to just kind of show up to. I think, Jacob, you can talk about this because you were kind of the guy that did that. You came up here for school, you have family in the area, that kind of thing. So you had that support system underneath of you. And Dan, I'm not sure if that's similar to you, but starting fresh in a new city is very intimidating.
Yeah, it is. I came to town and got involved in a lot of different activities. I met my wife, and we have 3 wonderful kids, and now some grandkids. But they all, or at least one of them, started in the Marietta schools. The others were too young when we moved to Chillicothe. They started school there. And so so I still got a lot of connections to the Marietta area, and still come back to visit family every once in a while. Not as often as maybe we'd like.
And just on, just kind of more on the upbeat side of things, maybe some funny stuff, or some untold stories of whether it was some things that you did that weren't necessarily in your job description, or some funny things from some of your peers in the radio business. What is a thing that is either untold, or maybe not a lot of people know, just from your era of what things happened, whether it be a big event or just some of the behind-the-scenes things that you just really had to steer things to keep it afloat?
Well, I was active in Boy Scouts when I got to Marietta. Big Joe Russell asked me to help with the first year I was there with a scout troop that his sons were involved in. And so I got to know the Russell family quite well over the years. And one of the things that Joe suggested one time was, why don't you do a Saturday show on how to fix your own car? So Roy Skoglund and I, for quite a few years, did a Saturday morning 20 minutes about how to fix your car and save some money with the parts from the Marietta Ignition. And most of the time it was on my car that needed repairs. And we had a good time with that.
That's perfect. I think we should start something up like that. Get you a new hubcap, get my heat shields fixed underneath of the van. You know how that goes.
Well, one of the Russell boys was getting married, and Roy and I decided we were going to do a program on how to properly decorate a car after a wedding.
Ah, I see.
That had a lot of comments when we wound up at the church for the wedding of people that had heard that Saturday morning. There's a lot of other good memories. Traveling with Big John to the Division II, Division III World Series out in Springfield, Illinois, where the ball that probably turned the tide that the Pioneers didn't win the game hit a flagpole that was in 10 feet inside center field fence. And one of the old folks that had been at that stadium, he said for 50 years, he said he'd never seen that happen before.
Wow.
One of other things, the World Series for the Division III in Marietta was always a lot of fun. The Chamber of Commerce dinners, a lot of great speakers, Charles Corral, Charles Osgood, Penny Youngman, Kelly Monteith over the years, was a lot of things. Remembering to cover the floods and how accurate some of the people could be was quite interesting.
Yeah, and I would say that kind of goes the same today. We keep an eye on the river constantly, and we have the ability to sort of log on now, and we have the technology in the water that tells us predictions from how much rain is going up north, how much is coming down here. So we do that, and, we get many thanks for doing what we do. And that as a whole has really never changed. WMOA, since its start, has always kept an eye on that river. It's definitely a big part of the town. And have you ever had any river stories, whether being on the river or a high river or anything like that?
There was quite a few times when the water would come up. Very few times after the big dams were put in did it cause a lot of damage in the downtown area. But there were several nights that we were out early morning, going along. A lot of basements flooded. I remember going and seeing all the booths of timeout bars hung from the ceiling one time, and the water on the floor. And it was just brought the hoses in and hosed it out when it went down.
And that's just that fun stuff that just being from Tennessee, we didn't have rivers around, and seeing how ingrained it is to the life of people, whether it's the river or, as you mentioned, the Marietta College at Express, the Pios, and just that really community feel. I believe you touched on it a little bit, but kind of expand on, that broadcasting start. And was it everything that you thought it would be? Was it different? How do you get in? And, how did it kind of change your perception and shape over time as you said, man, this was everything I hoped it was, or maybe it wasn't, but I still love it, for all of these different reasons?
Yeah, I'd been in college and did, the radio station at Muskingum College. Was working at the Zanesville TV station. I'd gotten the first-class license one summer while I was in college. And so, I was familiar with equipment, familiar with being a disc jockey. I did an internship at a New York City radio station and learned more about programming a small market radio station from their morning person than you could in any books, and how to relate to the person one-on-one, even though you're talking to the masses. That's one of the most important things, is that you're talking in a conversation and being a friend to the listeners. And I think that's one of the things that we've done, that the radio does so very, very well over the years. Like I said, I worked for 3 different owners in Marietta, and then moved to the next 1490 over in Chillicothe, and went through 7 owners before I finally decided it was time to retire and hang up the microphone.
That was one of the questions that I wanted to get into, was the other 1490s that are not only in the area, but outside of the area as well. Did you have any stumbling point when you were working for the 1490, down the road, I suppose? It's a little while away, but did you ever say WMOA on another station?
I don't know if I did or not. I don't think so. I just used 1490 a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Interesting that I moved to the next 1490, and it was owned by the next 1490 over in Richmond, Indiana. And then, through the mergers and so forth of the big companies, Clear Channel, iHeart owned the station in Marion, Ohio, which was also 1490. So I did discover that at a place in like in Newark, Ohio, you could be listening to 1490 on Ohio State games and it comes in crystal clear until the local commercials come on. And then it's three different ones on top of each other.
I have kind of a similar story, Dan, and it was after I moved away in 2013. I moved to Owensboro, Kentucky, and also worked for another AM 1490 down there, and that was kind of Twilight Zone-y. The whole area was. I mean, my boss's name was Moon Mullins, for Pete's sake, and then 1490, we were right on the Ohio River. Some of the business names were the same. They kind of refer to themselves as the River City, so working for another 1490 kind of made me feel right at home.
Well, it is the most crowded AM frequency there is in the country.
Right. See, that's
I didn't know that. And yeah, I just think in these last few minutes here, I think the conversation has been great. But whether it's some memories or some sentiment for the community, or just an all-encompassing view of your time, what would be just something you wanted to add that we haven't touched on so far?
Well, it's very many fond memories. We traveled down the streets where I took kids for walks on the strollers over the years. Lots of good times. I did take evening classes at Marietta College and did follow a lot of the sports, and that was always a good memory to have. Just the town itself. I heard you talking about the Delta Queen, and that was a big highlight of the summer when it would stop by and we'd get up on the Texas deck and do a broadcast from it. So it was a lot of good memories from the time that I spent in Marietta, and a lot of friends, and some of them continue to be friends through this time, including John Wharf, that I've stayed in touch with over the years.
Yeah, it's amazing. And just the ability to get you back on the phone and get you back on the radio for a little while, even if it's only 26 minutes and 48 seconds as it has been so far. It's, incredible that we're able to do it. And I'm assuming when you get down to the river and see the Delta Queen coming up, that was still a Calliope-driven trek up the river, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It was a lot of fun. There was a local person that had a music store that did an album on Calliope music, and I found it the other day when I was trying to clean out stuff.
Wow.
It's hard to throw some of that stuff away.
Yeah, without a doubt. And, just in the last minute here or so, Dan, I really want to thank you for taking the time to give us a call up here at the radio station. 75 years we've been doing it, and, it's because of people like you back in the day that really pushed us up to where we are now. It wouldn't be here without the former employees, JK.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, and I just want to share that same sentiment and just thank you and wish you the best and just welcome you back anytime, whether it's a phone call or even a visit back to Marietta. I'm sure the listeners and the staff as well would love to hear from you again. Dan, thanks so much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Absolutely so. AM 1490 and FM 101.3 on your radio dial. ABC News and Sports coming up at the top of the hour here on WMOA, Marietta.